Blog Talk Radio.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio. It is February 3rd, 2016. This is your host, Andrew Fisher, broadcasting Wednesdays from the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to expose the true and false nature of reality for what it is and what it is not. Today on the show is Dr. I want to make sure I get that in, Dr. Rita Louise. As I titled the show, she is a medical intuitive with a love for both spirituality and antiquity. She is also the host of Just Energy Radio and the founder of Institute of Applied Energetics, a naturopathic physician and 20-year veteran in the human potential field. And she's written a lot of, she's produced a number of video shorts, including Ancient Aliens, Genetic Engineering and the Rise of Civilization, The Truth About the Nephilim Giants, Deceit, Lies, and Deception, The Reptilian Agenda, Paranormal Phenomena, Attached Entities, The Bad Kids of the Spirit World, Ghosts, Gods, and Myth, The Secret to the to the Law of Attraction and Reincarnation. Have we been here before? Might have to ask her to clarify some of the titles there. The way I wrote it here in the video description was kind of hard to deduce, which exactly was the titles of those things and which were not. But anyway, I do believe this is her in the queue here, area code at 972. And I saw her in the chat room here, Dr. Rita Louise. I guess maybe she lied out of that for some reason, but if that is her in the queue, Dr. Louise, I will get you on at no later than 10 after the hour. Psychic Sean, I see you in the chat room. You won't be listening to all this show, but as much as possible because your daughter's coming in. All right, I see that. Glad to have you stick around for that. And couple of things. Dr. Louise credits her early childhood influences for the direction her life would take. By the age of 8, she began searching for spiritual self-discovery, pursuing topics including health and wellness, philosophy, and the esoteric arts and sciences, including a deep interest in ancient traditions, culture, archaeology, and human origins. She is a graduate of the Berkeley Psychic Institute, where she studied meditation, energy medicine, and learning how to perform clairvoyant readings. I see someone else in the queue there, area code 214 with a question mark next to your number. I'll check to see which one of you is Dr. Rita Louise. I'll check you both. And I'll be taking calls at 7:15 Eastern, which is in an hour and 12 minutes from now. So just a couple of things here. Dr. Louise returned to school full-time after graduation, earning a degree as a naturopath. And then her PhD in natural health counseling. She also earned the distinction of Reiki Master and Certified Hypnotherapist. Well, before I get her on, I will quickly do the news on the fly here, courtesy of Alex Jones and company at InfoWars. First article. Muslim president to visit a U.S. mosque tied to terrorism. All right. Let's hope this isn't some sort going to go backfire in some way. We've heard all kinds of crazy stuff in this present time about how Syrian refugees and other immigrants are coming into the European countries and America as part of a New World Order plot to bring them in to destroy the countries and get rid of the national sovereignty and take our jobs and all the other bad things that they can have illegal immigrants do, which is why it's not a bad idea for us to secure the borders and ask for the borders to be secured and do a vetting process on anybody who tries to enter this country. It may seem like a violation of rights to force immigrants to go through a process to come to this country, somewhat absurd, but as long as there is a conspiracy to bring those illegal immigrants into a country to destroy the country, then it's not a bad idea to make immigration a privilege. All right, next article. Married 11-year-old Muslim girl seeks asylum in Norway. Well, you are free to go to Norway. Just make sure you go to Norway, the legal, lawful way. Not exactly sure why there must be some significance as to why this is a top story in InfoWars. Didn't really want to get into these articles in too much detail because I just got to do them on the fly, just picking what's here on the top stories list. But anyway, you guys can check that out on your own and see what the deal is with that. Next article, well, actually two articles in one here. Lavoy Finicum, the FBI's drop gun, and Lavoy Finicum was shot 9 times by the FBI. I was watching videos by Mr. Cat Eye recently where he showed that Lavoy Finicum, he suggests, I shouldn't say thinks, he's not going to say that he thinks it, but has suggested that Lavoy Finicum is actually a government agent who is trying to screw over everyone at the Oregon standoff. And, well, first of all, let me make it clear. If nobody gave the federal government permission to be in Oregon for that, then the federal government has no permission to be in that part of Oregon. the people need to give permission to the federal government for the government to come in there, and the people have not done that. So can the federal government get the hell out of there? And also, Lavoy Finicum, is he a government agent? Who knows? I don't know. Was he actually killed? Well, Mr. Cat-Eye said that after he got out of that car, it was actually a ruse. The snipers, it says shot 9 times. They just faked the shooting and didn't actually kill him, and were shooting enough times to make the rest of the people in the car duck down while they could fake Lavoy Finicum's death. And well, maybe this is an update to that. Don't have time to look into it. I kind of just got home recently. I often try to look at the news stories before I get to my computer, before the show, just so I can not prepared to talk about them in greater detail, but didn't have time to do that because I just got home shortly before the radio show was on. So check this out. It's a mystery there, the Lavoy Finicum case. Our next article, the Texas Border Police chief and officer arrested for allegedly stealing marijuana evidence. Well, when it comes to the police, do they actually sell the drugs and do the drugs that they themselves they confiscate from the criminals? Well, maybe some do and some don't. I mean, many people have thought that police would get drug tested, but maybe they don't, and that enables them to have a little fun with the drugs that they catch and with the drugs that they seize from people. And, well, I mean, just because a drug is illegal doesn't mean that it's against the law. You have to understand there's a difference between unlawful and illegal. Unlawful, it's unlawful because it violates common law, which says do no harm, there's no crime. But illegal is when something is said it's illegal, it's against statutes, codes, and things that are considered to be public policy, which is not necessarily binding upon people in the general public unless the people in the general public give their individual consent that it be binding. So a lot of the drug raids are totally out of the government's authority, yet people don't realize that they're not actually committing crimes when they possess drugs, and they don't realize how in court, the maritime admiralty courts, they will allege that you do something in a commercial capacity over which there's governmental authority, and people don't know how to, governmental regulatory authority, people don't know how to object to that. It's a shame, because that's why the prisons are so overcrowded. All right, and then there's one more article here, The Truth About Federal Land Grabs. David Knight, if it was reported, was interviewing some guy. I didn't get a chance to watch the interview, but I know this is a video article. And the truth about federal land grabs. So the land grabs are for the United Nations. The United Nations was designed not for peace, but to be the de facto headquarters of the global New World Order totalitarian government. And the federal land grabs are for the UN to take over the country and create the North American Union, in addition to the European Union, which they have, and the African Union, and they want a Pacific Union too. So if the common people, and if nobody in the government gives the federal, and the Oregon government gives the government permission, the federal government permission to be there, then they can't be there, and the people have the authority to nullify that. So people, stop being like the cowardly animals that are preyed on by the predators and run away in terror, even though you outnumber the predators. I mean, we outnumber them over 100. Over 101. That was 101 was the Bug's Life analogy. It's way more than that with humans. Can we stop being cowardly? If the government kills you, don't worry. You're infinite consciousness. You will live on. A lot of people don't look at it that way, but all right. I do have Rita Louise's website, soulhealer.com. If you type ritalouise.com, it automatically redirects to soulhealer.com. I know, I checked that. So I got to find out which one here is Rita Louise. Area code 214. Is this Rita Louise?
Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
Oh, great. So you're not area code 972. Area code 972, you will be the first one I take calls from.
Well, actually, that's me, too.
Oh, okay.
My internet decided to drop right when the show was starting to come up.
Oh, well,
on my cell phone.
That explains why you got out of the chat room. Okay, well, you're in there now, so I see you there in the chat room. Psychic Sean and a couple of guests who can't type because they're guests. Well, all right, I'm glad to have you on. First of all, a lot of radio hosts do this at the end of their show. I guess I'll do it to start off this show. Aside from giving us some background on your website and how people can contact you, I'd like you to give a quick, brief background of the radio show that you host, Just Energy Radio, when people can listen to that, and also some companies, or lack of a better word, companies you work for, like Applied Energetics and whatever that is. So give us some brief background on your work and what it covers to set the stage, and also how people can contact you.
Okay. Okay, so, I mean, I have so much stuff going on, Andrew. Okay, so one you mentioned is my radio show, which actually is now, I'm going to say TV, but it was still on the Just Energy Radio website. They can listen to the audio of it on Thursday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. by going to www.justenergyradio.com. But we've started doing it in a video format, and that's just been in this last month. So we have 2 video episodes up on the show, and the video portion gets put up on the website on Friday. So I am very excited because it's kind of like being one-on-one with the person that is being interviewed. And it's really fun because we make faces at each other. So I like that. The Institute of Applied Energetics is a professional-level training program I developed for people that are interested in becoming an energy medicine practitioner, intuitive counselor, or certified medical intuitive. The website is appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. And then there is my site, soulhealer.com. And pretty much soulhealer.com is the gateway to everything, so you don't need to know about any of these other sites. If they just go to soulhealer.com, they can find out about getting a private consultation from me. They can find out about the radio show. They can find out about the training. They can, information that will direct them to the correct webpage because I have way too many. How's that?
Thank you very much. And at the beginning of the show, before having you on, I seem to have had trouble properly titling many of your works here because all the commas and colons weren't really placed in such a way here to determine which words go with which titles. Maybe you can correct me if I screwed up anywhere. It says you have produced a number of video shorts whose titles include, is this one of the Ancient Aliens episodes, Ancient Aliens, Genetic Engineering, and the Rise of Civilization?
No, I mean, this doesn't have anything to do with the series. I have just produced a number of video shorts as well as a full-length documentary, and I'm working on a new one right now that I don't have a title for, or else I would tell you. Some of them are available on YouTube. Some of them are available on Amazon Digital Download. So the full-length documentary is called Icon, Deconstructing the Archetypes of the Ancients, and that's available on Amazon. Ancient Aliens, I don't have the titles in front of me. Go to YouTube, Just Energy Radio on YouTube, and you can access the Dr. Rita Louise Presents playlist, and it has all the videos there except for the ones that are on Amazon. If you just type in Rita Louise on Amazon, it'll bring up the Icon video as well as another one that is exclusive to Amazon, which is In the Name of God, which looks at laws, ancient law and how it plays into contemporary society.
Thank you. And I guess as far as picking topics to discuss for this show, we got a whole slew of things. So may think the best way to do this show, we do as many topics as possible and do them on the fly so we can cram it, a lot of it into an hour and 45 minutes. So let's just do this bit by bit. We may seem to be jumping all over the place, but that's okay because you cover multiple things. One of the video shorts, The Truth About the Nephilim Giants. Is that the title, or was there anything to it?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
The Truth About the Nephilim Giants.
Okay, well, let's talk about this. We all, maybe those who are familiar with the work of Zecharia Sitchin, and I guess I'll ask you to give your take on him because I have heard from people, including Akashic Records reader Andrew Bartzis, that, well, for one, all that stuff about Zecharia Sitchin being a disinfo agent, it's all a lie, it's all a fraud. It was all a cover-up to conceal the fact that his first 3 books are very accurate. That's not me talking, that's Andrew Bartzis talking, asserting that Nibiru does exist, the Anunnaki extraterrestrials do exist on there, and by the way, in my interview with Andromeda Council contacting Tolek, he explained that life can exist on Nibiru even though it's so far from the sun because it has its own perpetual energy system within the planet and has its own unique protective shield that protects it through outer space. Not to mention, Andrew Bartos mentioned Nibiru has a dimensional drive, unlike Earth, which has a unity consciousness drive that controls the planet. So it's not like Earth in many ways. And so Sitchin says the Nephilim and the Anunnaki, and also the Elohim and the Nephilim and the Anunnaki, they're all one and the same, although he said that it would be too generalistic and tight and narrow to say that they're all exactly the same thing. Like Nephilim, it's not just the Anunnaki. There could be other genetic giants that walk the earth, and also Elohim. The Anunnaki are part of that, but there could be other entities that make up the Elohim. And all those skulls, like people like Brian Forrester, if I pronounce his name right, have done a lot of research on those skulls. I also talked with Linda Moulton Howe about it when I had her on the show. She worked with Sitchin too for a little while and was very familiar with those skulls. So in regards, and the Bible, talking about how there were giants in those days, they loved the daughters of men and all that and had sex with them. So I've babbled long enough. Why don't you tell us what you think is the truth about the Nephilim giants and how it ties into Sitchin's work and the skulls and all that?
Well, okay, that's a pretty big area. I think I want to start with Sitchin's work. I mean, he talks about the Anunnaki, and when you start looking at the mythic record, and this doesn't really have to do with that film, it has more to do with what I cover in my book, E.T. Chronicles, what myth and legend has to say about human origin. But one of the things that you uncover as you start looking at the mythic record, not just Sumerian, not just Egyptian, is that there are descriptions of gods that take on various forms and have different attributes. And I can understand where the Anunnaki might be one of these groups, but I do not believe that they were the only groups. You know, when we think of extraterrestrials, I'm just going to say like the Greys. You know, so if you're going to say the Anunnaki equal the Greys, then you're talking about one species of extraterrestrials. And I don't believe that there's just one species of extraterrestrials, that there are multiple species of extraterrestrials that have come down to the earth and encountered, and have worked, on the earthly plane. And so to use the word Anunnaki, I guess you can use it as a generic term, but if you're using it to identify a specific race of being, it doesn't include all the races of beings that have been on the planet. With that said, I don't believe that the Nephilim were an extraterrestrial group. I believe that they were the giants. They were the 7 to 12-foot giants that people are always talking about. When you look at mythology, especially Greek mythology, they talk about the Nephilim in Greek. One of the translations is earthborn. And so mythology so in Greek mythology, Kronos castrated Uranus, his father. And the Nephilim were created, the earthborn were created from the blood of the castrated Uranus that fell on the earth. There is a similar legend that comes out of Mesoamerica that talks about Sikloikwe, and I forget what she did, but she throws 1,600 flint knives on the earth, and that creates a race of beings on the earth, not necessarily human. And so even when you read the biblical passage that says, in those days the Nephilim walked the earth, my statement back is, yes, in those days these giants walked the earth. But it wasn't the giants that had sex with the giants weren't the sons of the gods. They were, they were the inhabitants of the planet. And humanity, as we know it, was a very late comer into the development of life on Earth, at least according to the mythological record. When I wrote that book, E.T. Chronicles, the development of humanity, the creation of humanity, didn't appear in the mythological record until the second to last chapter. So there's all this mythic history that happens prior to humanity being created on the earth. With the Nephilim being part of that creation story prior to humanity being formed. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll be on mute whenever you're talking, just so you know.
Okay.
Moving to another race of ETs of sorts. Deceit lies in deception, the reptilian agenda. A lot of people are familiar with reptilians because of David Icke, although it should be noted, just to give credit where credit is due, David Icke got the idea of the reptilian alien from Jordan Maxwell shortly after Maxwell brought David to America in the early 90s. And it has been said by Andrew Bartzis, there's 18 species of reptilian on Earth. Only one is evil, one is malevolent, although that one malevolent group can be put into different subgroups that are all clones from each other, including reptilians that come from Alpha Draconis and the Hydra constellation and the Sirius B star system, and I think some from Orion, but they're all clones of each other. They are. And, so it's not just not lies and deception. There's a lot of good ones, too. I'm guessing, though, you're focused mostly on the bad reptilians, and a lot of reptilians, it has been said, the bad ones anyway, have been removed off this planet. I talked about Tolek in my interview with him, reiterating on some of the things that he discussed with Alfred Weber back in 2011 about how a lot of the reptilian bases have been shut down and such, and there's not as many of them on planet Earth as there were. So I'll give you the floor to talk about this reptilian agenda thing.
Okay. Basically what the video talks about is looking at the mythic history. That's my thing, mythology and cosmology. And so one of the things that you find that comes out of the mythic records that supports the concept of reptilians in general is the idea of the half-man, half-serpent, half-man, half-fish. And if you think about, our ancestors were describing things because it came through their oral tradition for a very long time before they actually started documenting it, doing pictographs, et cetera, et cetera. And so if they were describing it as being a half-man, half-serpent, the way it's represented in art is the upper body of a man and the lower portion of a serpent. But could it be that what they were really talking about in Antiquity were these reptilians where they were humanoid, but they were reptile-like? So that's one possibility. One of the other things that you find in the mythic record is a clear understanding that there were, I'm going to say, underground bases where these either underground or underwater areas where these reptilians lived, where these half-men, half-serpent people lived. And so really what I do in this piece is gather information that people have put out about these different groups, organize it together, and then compare it to what the historical record says to see if there's any credence to what they're saying. And based on stories that come forward through history, there is support for this whole concept of reptilians on the planet. And my belief is that, we have the story of God casting out Lucifer, and that whole battle that happened in heaven. That's kind of more of a biblical, Christian story. But there are parallels in other cultures, and I use Greek because people know the names and they're easy to say. But in the battle that happened between Zeus and Kronos, Zeus was a sky god. Kronos was a fertility god. And you start comparing these characters, and the fertility gods were always connected with the water. They're often represented as being this half-man, half-lizard or serpent or whatever body type. And so we have a parallel story that happens in the two. And I feel like in Christianity or in more contemporary religion, where's God? God is up there. God is in the sky. Where is the devil? Well, the devil is down there inside the earth. And I kind of joke around about it, but it's kind of like we were put on an agenda to vilify the serpent gods that once ruled this earth. I do believe that the reptilians, quote unquote, rule the earth, and were usurped by this group of sky gods, the Anunnaki. But they still played a role in working with them. You know, they were still here. And so even when you start looking at Sumerian texts, we have Ea or Enki, who created and formed humanity, and he's associated with being a fertility god and lived in the underworld. He lived in the Abzu, in the watery deep. And so, like I said, you start looking at these different cultures, looking at these different mythological storylines, you just find parallel after parallel after parallel.
Yes, thanks. And what exactly is mythology? Some debate the definition of this. Like Jordan Maxwell, one of recent interviews I saw you do with Richie Allen, he said that mythology and religion are one and the same. The difference, though, is that you wouldn't call something a religion unless you believed it to be true. What someone else believes that you think is a fallacy is mythology. Do you agree or disagree with that way of looking at the difference?
I mean, I can see the point in that. I mean, if you think about it, you know, the gods of Greek mythology, that was the religion. You look at some of these Native American traditions, you know, Viracocha or any of them, and those were their gods. That was their religion. And the stories that have come down to us are the stories of those people. You know, and so we just take it and call it mythology because it denigrates the fact that that was their truth at one point in time. So, you know, is it because the difference because somebody believes it or not? I guess so. I mean, it is correct, you know, but if you say to somebody, excuse me, the story of Jesus is a myth, I don't think they'd be real happy.
Yes, and in regards to how much of religion is based on truth. Now, this is a highly debatable subject, and many would assert there's no correct answer. It varies. I mean, ask the people who create the show Ancient Aliens, and they say the ancients depicted what they saw. But people who believe that religions were put on Earth to brainwash and suppress the consciousness of humanity would say, well, that's not necessarily true. If the ancients believed a certain religion or mythology, whatever you want to call it, then a lot of the things that they depicted are not true, not things that they saw, but things that they believed to be true because they succumbed to the religious brainwashing, which was imposed by archons who wanted to brainwash and suppress the consciousness of humanity. So they toyed around with religions. That's not to say that there were good ETs and entities that got involved with creating religions, but a lot of brainwashing has been going on. So in regards to picking out how much of religion and how much of the characters like Jesus, the Greco-Roman gods, and all the other characters that we think about in religion and mythology, is there any way to determine, okay, this is total fantasy or some twisted story that's based on some truth?
Okay, good question. How do I want to answer this? There are a lot of elements in the stories, in the mythological stories. I'm going to start with indigenous religion. I'm going to call it religion, indigenous religion. There are elements that you find in these stories that there is no way a quote-unquote primitive culture would have an understanding of what they were seeing. And so I believe that there is a solid base of what has come forward that there is truth to it. Okay? Now, with that said, when you start getting into more contemporary religions, there is so much freaking dogma that is tossed on top of this base belief that it's just not even funny. But you talked about the idea of programming, and actually I have like 50 projects going on. I'm working on a video. I have 2 books that I'm working on. But one of the books, is looking at this whole topic, and I don't want to say brainwashing, but it does kind of come into play, and I don't know that I would use that word, but it works for me. There are things that we do. You know, no one ever stops and takes a step back to look at our culture. And I don't mean our culture meaning the United States. I mean our culture as far as being human and as far as living on this planet. There are laws and morals that we follow that they seem like they were programmed in us. Like, actually, I just finished writing an article for Ancient Origins magazine about marriage. Now, marriage is one of the oldest and most consistent things that humans do. I mean, there is not one society on Earth, both modern society and indigenous culture, that doesn't believe in marriage. But why start getting married in the first place? And if you start looking at these laws and morals, it's always because the gods imposed them upon humanity. I mean, where do we get the Ten Commandments? Moses from the top of Mount Sinai. The Code of Hammurabi, the gods gave them to Hammurabi. Indigenous cultures, they always feared the wrath of God, that if they didn't follow one of his prescribed rules, that they were going to die. And so there is always this supreme being tied to the rules that we follow in our lives. And that's what this whole book is going to get into, is why do we do the things we do? And as a society, as a people on the earth, are we just so programmed? For example, and let's just kind of take it in a different little way. We have the rule, quote unquote, thou shalt not kill. And I mean, that's pretty basic ideology amongst cultures around the world. And we think that it is an inherent part of being human, even though we'll kill and maybe feel a little bit bad, but, it happens anyway. But if you, and I know this is kind of going out a little, out there, but if you kind of recall Star Trek and Klingon beliefs, it's like they believed that it was good to die in battle and they didn't have issues with death and killing. And their moral base was just very different than the moral base that humans had, even on the show. And so the question that I ask as part of this exploration is, where did we get this moral base? Because it is consistent, in the Judeo-Christian world, where, that the moral base is the same as what you find in Australia. So where did this moral base come from? Because it seems obvious that it's not a genetic part of who we are. It is definitely something that has been learned and bred into us through our culture. And I believe that it is the extraterrestrials that gave us this baseline to live by. Do what I say, not what I do. Because they're a pretty rowdy bunch. The gods, that is.
Right, a lot of debate as to those gods. Like, I'm actually planning on reading one of Eric von Daniken's books where he talks about how he thinks the Greco-Roman gods were, in fact, ETs, maybe not necessarily flesh and blood, but some higher dimensional entity that people perceived as real. So I'll get to reading that book soon. But anyway, let's move on to different topics, switch gears a bit. Another video here, attached entities, the bad kids of the spirit world, ghosts, gods, and myth. Is that properly? Did I word that title properly?
No, it's ET, or attached entity, bad kids of the spirit world. That's period. And
okay.
Ghost, gods, and myth is totally separate.
Okay, so let's start with the bad entity, the bad kids of the spirit world. Bad kids, well, where do they come from? And there's a controversial subject here. What dimension are they from? Because a lot of people say what dimension or density an entity is from has to do with the degree to which they are a service to self or service to others entity. I've heard some say that once you get up to the seventh density or dimension, whatever you want to call it, there's no more service to self. It's strictly service to others. And the like the Greys and the Reptilians, a lot of people say they come from the bad ones. They come from the lower fourth dimension, or David Icke would.
Well, and I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm not
Okay.
talking about anything like that.
Okay, so
what
exactly?
I'm talking about, so there is a phenomena that happens to actually quite a lot of people where they end up having, I call it an entity. It is a non-corporeal being that attaches to them. It enters their auric field and tries to control them in their lives. The majority of them take on physical form. They speak, I say human, because they have thoughts and emotions and feelings that you can relate to on a human level, and so you can communicate with them. There are some that I call extraterrestrial because they do not either take on human form, you are not able to communicate with them using any kind of, I'm very empathic and will try to tap into these entities' feelings, but they really are feeling less. So it's challenging for me to communicate with them. But basically what these things do, obviously they're not very high energy because they're all parasitic. And they try to control people's lives. So let me just share a quick story. So I had a client, and please forgive the way that I explain this, but I had a client who came to me because she was having issues with bulimia. And so basically she would eat a lot of food and then vomit it all up. And I do a lot of health work with individuals. They have an acre of pain here. They're looking at having some surgery done. They want to get an intuitive opinion because I'm a medical intuitive, and so that's what I do is look at people's bodies on an intuitive level to give them insights into what's going on and steps that they can take to restore health. And so I wasn't really sure what to do with this bulimia thing because to me it's more of a behavioral issue than I have a broken gallbladder. Anyway, so I was just talking to her, and I'm, kind of in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so what am I going to talk to her about? And I asked her, I said, so what do you eat? And so she said, 6 Big Macs. And I just kind of took a step back, and I said, is that every day? Is that every week? What are we talking about here? And so she goes, oh, no, for lunch. Now, I was a bit aghast at that point in time. And I'm like, is that with the fries and Cokes too? She goes, oh, yeah. I didn't really know what to say to that. The look of shock on my face was pretty intense. I go, well, what about, breakfast? She goes, a couple of dozen eggs, maybe a box of cereal. And I go, then what? She goes, then I throw it up. And so she's explaining her eating patterns to me, and she just came out with this comment. She said, well, somebody told me that I was possessed. Well, that just made me stop right there, and as I like to explain it, I put my entity glasses on, because when I'm doing specific health work, I'm kind of in a different vibration, a different frame of mind where I'm looking inside their body. When I'm doing entity work, I have to be in a different energetic vibration. So it's kind of like I have to change the channel. So I changed the channel to get into the entity channel. And there was this very hungry young man who seemed like he was about 19 standing behind her. And I just made the comment. I said, well, you have this young man standing behind you, and he's really hungry. And it turned out that she had gone to the hospital. She had been very sick. And when she came out of the hospital, this is the behavior that she had, which is where I feel like she picked this young guy up. And we did a bunch of clearing work and got the young man to actually transition to the other side. It was a profound moment for both of us. It doesn't always happen that fast, but it was very profound for both of us. And I got a call back from her a couple of weeks later, and her comment was, my eating habits are back to normal. And it was all because this entity was controlling her space. And I've had clients who have tried to commit suicide because that's what their entities wanted them to do. People that have drug and alcohol problems most often have entity issues. People that have rage disorder most often have entity issues. I mean, the list can go on and on and on, how people can be controlled by these not high vibrating spirits. Pretty interesting phenomena.
Yes, it is, and I recall at the when I went to the Turn to Atlantis conference in Sarasota back in October 2013, Andrew Bartzis was one of the speakers there. He apparently had a lot of parasitic ETs trying to hassle the hell out of him, and there was some lady there at the conference who allegedly had the ability to see those ETs, those entities. And Chris Hales announced on one of his radio shows that he was also at the conference. He said Andrew Bartzis probably would have died had he not received some healing and clearing and such to protect him from those entities who did not want him to raise the consciousness of people that were going to be at that conference. Now, I find that really hard to believe that they would have killed him, because if they killed him, it would have sent shockwaves and disturbances through the force, if you will, that would only inspire Andrew Bartz's followers, and he has a lot of followers and supporters, to rise up and overpower the New World Order. It's a very bad idea for the New World Order to try to kill someone that they see as a threat to their agenda, because it will cause a disturbance that will backfire in terms of karma. So I find that really hard to believe. But this woman who was watching Bartzis, at no point during the entire conference did I ever recall seeing Andrew Bartzis smile or laugh. That's how much they were hassling him, apparently. And this woman, do you have any idea what she was doing, or what she might have seen what we would have seen if we had her vision, so to speak?
I have no idea. I mean, they come in all kinds of shapes and forms. I mean, I'm working with a woman right now who has an entity attachment that presents itself as like a doll. I mean, it's really kind of weird, not quite a Howdy Doody doll, but, a clown puppet doll thing, which I'm still trying to figure out how to deal with that thing. But I've had them appear as amoebas. I've seen, like, these dragonfly things. The ones that are the easiest for me, and the one that I wrote the video about, are these non-corporeal human entities. When you start getting into the alien entities or the, multidimensional entities, excuse my French, but they're a pain in the ass. Because they can just zip in and out of this existence. They create vortexes in your energy field, and they can bug the heck out of you, and they're very challenging to get rid of. So she might have helped clear his space for that day, which is very possible, but whether it was a permanent fix, I don't know. That tends to be a little bit more challenging to achieve.
Thank you. Let's get to the ghost, gods, and myth. We already talked about the gods and myth, but we didn't really get a chance to talk about ghosts much. So what are ghosts? There seems to be in pop culture this idea that ghosts haven't crossed over because they have some sort of unfinished business. Well, that raises the whole question of why are they a ghost? And, well, some would debate whether it makes sense to use the word limbo to describe a state of a ghost. There's a lot of agreement and disagreement as to whether what a ghost is an entity in a state of limbo, but also what a ghost is made of. We know they can be detected because there's allegedly a ghost at Roswell, New Mexico, of one of the aliens that died in the crash. And Jim Mars, in a recent presentation he did, talked about how some guy who had a ghost detecting tool, for lack of a better phrase, was at the...
Can I laugh now? Was it on his cell phone? Please.
No. What happened was some psychic entity was there and could perceive where the entity was. It was by a bookshelf or something like that. And the guy had like this wand attached to his machine, and he waved it across like the shelf. And as soon as it got to like the area where the ghost would have been standing, it started beeping and going, and then the frequency went up and then down after he took it away from where the ghost was allegedly standing. The ghost of the Roswell alien that was at some hospital near Roswell, New Mexico. So that raised the question of what kind of device was that, and what was the device detecting that the ghost was made of. So let's hear your take on ghosts and what they are and why they are still around.
Okay, so ghosts can be all right. There are ghosts that are individuals who have not crossed over, and so they don't want to go because they're afraid of what's going to happen. They don't know they're dead. they're waiting for someone. I mean, they have their reasons why they don't go in. They don't go into the light, you know, and that's their choice, and they end up hanging around. A lot of ghosts, however, are people that have died. They've gone over to the other side, and they come back, and they're like hanging out, you know. And so people like all freaking out. It's like, oh, well, I have a ghost. It's like, yeah, but it's a friendly ghost. You know, and it's just because there's a spirit in your house, you know, there are spirits everywhere. If you think about it, you know, I don't believe people go to heaven. You know, you go to this other dimension, and there's not anything stopping you from coming back here and visiting on the non-corporeal plane. And so anybody that's here visiting on the non-corporeal plane would be one of these ghosts, good, bad, or indifferent, you know, so... You know, but they all kind of get lumped into the same category, you know, the same generic term of ghost, because we really haven't separated them out clearly. So what that whole piece was, the ghost gods and myths, just to put it out there, was that there in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Enkidu, who is Gilgamesh's friend, is dying. And in the story, he's afraid that when he dies, he'll become a ghost. So we know that as far back in the recorded history, that about 2500 BC, there was a clear understanding of what ghosts were. It seems to indicate, based on our concept and knowledge of burial, that the concept, you know, I was talking earlier about this global conception, you know, but coming in contact with a corpse is like a big taboo everywhere. And there is this kind of universal fear that if you don't bury someone correctly, don't give them the correct right, that they'll come back and torment you. Thus the fear of ghosts. And so what the whole piece looks at is the concept of, okay, so we have this belief in a non-corporeal creator being, God, you know, whatever form, pantheon you want to put it, but these quote-unquote non-corporeal beings that interact with humanity. And we have ghosts, which are non-corporeal beings. So why do we have these stories about the gods and these legends about the gods, and why do we depict the gods and do all of this stuff about the gods, and the ghosts don't get anything, even though it seems clear from, you know, 90,000 BC, there was an understanding of the spirit of the dead. It was just a thought. I like to bring up thoughts. I like to make people think, here's the information, you know, what do you think? I don't like coming to conclusions for people. You know, I like for them to just raise their awareness and let them come to their own conclusions.
Thanks. Let's switch gears to the next topic, next video. Secret of the law of attraction and reincarnation. Have we been here before? First of all, about reincarnation, I've heard some say it does exist, but it's not your friend. You don't want to reincarnate because then you're not ascending into higher consciousness. You're just staying here in a lower consciousness. So you don't want, it's actually part of the...
Who do you hang around with? Who do you
What?
hang around with? I said, who do you hang around with?
Who do I hang around with?
Well, that would come up with something stupid like that. I mean, the only way that you can move up to another level is to go through the cycle and go through the cycle until you clear enough energy so that you can move up to the next level.
Okay, so not all reincarnation is harmful, but as part of a quarantine of sorts that's been imposed on the Earth, it has been said by, among other Tantribartzis, that reincarnation is part of that quarantine to keep entities trapped here. I mean, is like a certain percentage, for lack of a better word, percentage of reincarnation that type of quarantine reincarnation?
I don't get into that whole quarantine. That, you know, there is no evidence to support that. As that
Really?
somebody saying, oh, blah, 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 you know, I like looking at the mythological record. I like looking at consistencies that we find around the world. And as far as quarantines, galactic federations, all that stuff, nothing. There's nothing.
I just brought it up because I'm reading Michael Tsarian's book, Atlantis, Alien Visitation, and Genetic Manipulation. While I do agree to disagree with him on what his claim that Atlantis and the Moria existed at the same time, I kind of wonder where he gets the idea that a quarantine has been imposed on Earth by ETs that basically chased other ETs to this planet, and they aided in the destruction of a planet called Tiamat that became the asteroid belt, Tsarian claims. And before those ETs that were chasing the ETs to Earth left, they imposed a quarantine on this planet, which is keeping those ETs that fled to Earth for safety from leaving this planet.
I mean, there are people that bring that up, but I don't know where they get that information short of just channeling it. You know,
okay.
Or pulling it out of their ass, or going, oh, well, so-and-so said this, so it must be true. And so I'll just kind of take that and move on to the next thing. I mean, I don't mean to be skeptical, you know, and I talk about a lot of stuff that's kind of out there, but there are areas that I don't see anything to validate it.
Okay, fair enough. And yet, when it comes to cosmic stories, there's a lot of different stories. Like I said, Tsarian talks about a planet called Tiamat, which has gone by other names, that was entirely destroyed and became the asteroid belt. That clashes with Zecharia Sitchin's claim that one of Nibiru's moons collided with the Earth, and half the Earth became the asteroid belt, and the other half is the Earth we know today. And David Icke has talked about how the planet Saturn was a lot closer to the Earth, and then when it moved out, that helped in the creation of the asteroid belt. And so there seems to be a lot of different stories in regards to what happened from at a cosmic level in regards to our cosmic history. And
where do they get all that information? I mean, Tiamat is actually the mother goddess from the Sumerian epic of creation. Okay? And how she became a planet, I don't really know. Where they, you know, I mean, that's one of the things that I have with some people that put out work. It's like, okay, so where did you get that? You know, I have no idea, and I research a lot, and I read a lot. And one of the things, I won't read contemporary authors because half the time they're pulling crap out their butt. And you don't know where they're getting it from. They don't provide sources. And then when they do provide sources, you go look at their sources, and it isn't even there. Or they make such a giant leap based on a source, and then, you know, other people go, oh, well, that's true, and so I'm just going to move forward with this idea. And it's like, I would love to see their source material because I don't know where the heck they get it from. I mean, I have not found anything that said Tiamat was a planet. I mean, Tiamat obviously comes out of Sumerian cosmology. You know, I don't know where Sitchin got that idea. Don't know. Can't tell you.
Yeah, it's hard. Some people even has gone as far as saying, well, it's all different timelines. This happened in this timeline, the other thing happened in that timeline, and over the course of time at a cosmic level, the timelines will interact, and you can tell both stories as being true, but that's going way off into the deep end. So let's
okay,
get
but
back.
how can they prove that either? I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like people put out this stuff, and it's like, you know, it's like me running around going, oh, well, I was Cleopatra in a past life. It's like, right, like I can prove that. Like I can show any evidence to support what I'm saying. And all I want is some evidence. I won't put out anything that there isn't something to support the claim.
Well, good for you in that regard. And let's get to the secret of the law of attraction. Now, this, a lot of people would say, requires a lot of how can you prove that this works? I mean, I've been trying to use the law of attraction a lot in my life recently, watching a lot of videos and audios, and also some audios that claim it's been said the law of attraction, if it doesn't work for you, like trying to attain money, but you're not getting any money even though you're doing everything right, well, maybe it's because you have some sort of a subconscious block in your mind. Like maybe when you were a kid, your parents argued about money all the time, and that made you think money is bad, money is evil, money is harmful, and because of that, you cannot manifest money through the law of attraction. Well, there are some audios that you can listen to that contain subliminal messages that will unblock that subconscious block in your mind, which will allow you to use the law of attraction to manifest money. And a lot of people are seeing that there is some truth to this idea. And, is now a good time to be using the law of attraction to attain money, because all signs point to a collapse of the dollar in the very near future, like as in before the end of this year, and America would have to bear the brunt of that because the dollar was come from America. It's a global reserve currency, and even though we may transition into a gold or silverback currency, we're going to have to feel the pain of the dollar collapsing a bit. So many would argue, well, if you use law of attraction to attain money, how can it possibly work in this time? So tell us what you want and tell us about the law of attraction, how it works, and specifically this stuff I just said about money, if you can enlighten people a bit on that.
Andrew, you're killing me here. You're killing me. You know, the law of attraction, to me, the law of attraction is about bringing in what the heart desires. You know, money is money. Money is a mental construct. And people get so hung up. I want a car. I had a client who was using the law of attraction because she wanted to marry Troy Aikman. She never freaking ever met the man. She was like, well, you know, but is it going to happen? I'm doing this stuff every day. It's like, no, it ain't going to happen. I mean, come on. Let's be real here for a second. You know, they say there's your time and there's God's time. And if you're supposed to have something, you can be open to receiving it, and God will give it to you when it is time for you to have it. Demanding things doesn't work. Putting out that this is what I want, you know, the reality might be that what you want is to experience happiness. The reality might be that you want to make sure that your bills get paid. Or let's say you want to go on a trip, so you want this money so you can go on a trip. But if you back off and go, but what my heart really wants is to go on this trip, and you use the principle of the law of attraction about manifesting the trip, you might find some place that has reduced airfares. You might win a contest. You know, you might be able to manifest what your heart desires, and not just money. Money is nothing. Money is a piece of paper.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's been said you should not try to, if you want to like go on a vacation, even though you may need money to afford the vacation, don't try to use the law of attraction to get the money into your life. Try to envision yourself getting to that place, and then I realize that. I do realize that, but still, if people try to use the law of attraction to attain money, and maybe the subconscious blocks, I thought I'd point that out, may keep that from happening. So
let's just not use money. Okay, let's just not use money. Let's use anything, you know, some other thing. So let's say you want to go on this trip, you know, and so you're using the law of attraction, you know, or there's something that you want to do. You really need a new car. And then this part of you, you know, comes in. It's like, well, I really don't deserve it, you know, and those negative thought forms come in that interfere with you. The way the law of attraction works is you allow the flow of the universe to move through you, to move through your body, coming in through the seventh chakra, through your body, and out through the first chakra so it can manifest into the physical world. And so the reality is that that's what you want the principles of the law of attraction to do, to help open you up so that this energy can move through you. You know, I think everyone can remember a time where there's something that they were trying to do, and they worked so hard, and nothing happened. And when they finally gave up, boom, it all fell into place. It's because before they were so anal, and there was nothing moving through them. Their energy was still constricted. And once they gave up and let go, they allowed that flow to move through them again, and it happened. And so our negative thoughts and our self-depreciating thoughts can inhibit, you know, that movement. also, if we think, I want to make the money, and then there's another part of us that goes, well, I really don't deserve it, or it's not going to happen. I mean, I can say all these affirmations and blah, 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 but it's not going to happen. So which are you manifesting stronger? I want the money, or it's not really going to happen. So, I don't want to say you're sending out conflicting information, but you're sending out conflicting information.
Thank you very much. Getting a few callers here, about 4 people that seem to want to talk to you. This is going to be interesting. I'll be taking calls in 15 minutes. But before then, a couple things about, I'm just going on, according to the description here, I wrote in the bio, just going across it to do topic, subject after subject at a random level. But another thing about human origins, we talked about Sitchin and how his work was generally accurate, but also in regards to where the human race came from, it has been said that the Lyra star system is where a lot of is where the human race originated. I remember reading in an article, Characteristics of ET Races, on Lyra. It said that it showed how Lyra has a whole different hodgepodge of different ETs in that star system. And if you believe that humans are extraterrestrial genetic royalty with the genes of many different ETs, then it kind of does make sense that Lyra would have numerous different ET races residing in it. So the idea that humans came from Lyra, agree or disagree?
I have never even heard of a reference to Lyra in the mythological record. Period. You hear about the Pleiades, you hear about Draco, you hear about Orion, you hear about Sirius. Lyra, nothing.
Okay.
I don't know what they're talking about with that one.
Fair enough. You have a degree as a naturopath. Now, this is the kind of medicine that a lot of people should be doing, not allopathic medicine, which is what MDs do. That only treats the symptoms and not the causes. I'm quite familiar with this because I have a mother that's an ophthalmologist who makes well over $100,000 a year, and I told her in the past, you're kind of screwing people over in a sense, because if the Rockefellers hadn't created a medical monopoly on allopathic medicine, you wouldn't be doing this. You wouldn't be making all this money, because they could treat people with naturopath and other forms of medicine that can actually treat the causes and not the symptoms like you do. And she actually handled it pretty well. She was like, well, if people don't want to see me, they do have other choices. They're more than welcome to not see me. Well, that's kind of wrong, because they don't have choices, because the Rockefellers created a medical monopoly. And you also have a PhD in natural health counseling. So, but naturopath, the idea that you can use nature, I guess, to heal you, and all diseases are at some level a lack of some nutrition, proper nutrition. So what do you want to tell us about how naturopathic medicine and natural health counseling works?
Well, I mean, the primary work that I do with my clients is helping them to understand the thoughts and emotions that underlie their health. By the time something actually breaks through into the physical body, so by the time you're having gallbladder symptoms, by the time you are having panic attacks or diabetes or whatever, there usually is some psychospiritual issue at work that is sitting underneath why you're getting sick in the first place. But once it breaks through into the physical form, that's where natural remedies can really help to restore the body back to health. By feeding it. I mean, basically by feeding the body, calming down areas that are inflamed or, out of balance, and giving the body back what it needs. I have a number of people that will come because they want help, but my shoulder hurts, but I had this shoulder surgery, and now it hurts. And it's like, well, if it's broken, then I can't really fix it, because now you have, some intervention that is probably creating all the problems in the first place. And, you can't take a pill to fix a broken leg. The leg is just going to do what it's going to do. But I think that the majority of things that, people experience can be addressed naturally. I belong to a vegan group, and there are, I live in Podunk, Nowhere, Texas. So, Bible Belt, blue collar, they don't have chakras, there aren't extraterrestrials, nothing. We got nothing going on here. And, but they belong to this vegan group, and I would say over 50% of the people that participate in this group had some kind of a health condition, whether it was high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, overweight. They were on the trifecta of medications, maybe something else, and they changed their diet. Just by changing their diet, all of the issues went away within months. I mean, we're not talking years and years and years. We're talking within months of just changing their diet. I mean, that's powerful. And people don't realize, there's diseases that the body creates because of our psychospiritual issues, which is huge. But then there's this whole other chunk where we, I call it neglect. We eat the Western diet. We eat chips. We drink sodas. We go to McDonald's. We eat the crap that they sell in the supermarket. And we have this expectation that our body is going to stay healthy, by eating pre-processed, pre-packaged foods. And it won't. And I think when people, realize that they need to be on a natural diet, things will just start to turn around almost by themselves. That's my little soapbox for today.
Okay. In regards to my diet, maybe you could tell me whether I'm screwed or whether I'm not screwed, but I'm still making a mistake. In regards to my meat-eating habits, I see myself over the course of time. I think what kind of graph is that? I think it's called a hyperbola, where the graph goes all the way down to the x-axis, but never actually touches the x-axis. Gets closer and closer and closer to zero. My meat-eating habits over the course of time, I'll eat less meat and less meat and less meat and less meat and more non-meat foods, but I don't see myself ever giving up meat altogether. I could be wrong, but hey, I'm still eating meat. I don't really feel sinful about it, but I know that humans, we are supposed to be herbivores and we should not be eating meat. So am I screwed in that regard simply because I'll never stop eating meat? Or no, it's okay. You just got to take care of some precautions simply because you're eating meat, you got to do some other things to compensate for it.
Well, I think that if you're eating meat and, it's not the primary thing that you're doing, then you should be fine. So, I mean, if you're eating meat once a week or whatever, I think you should be fine. There are some people that get into a mindset of this is what I'm doing. I mean, I used to sell a lot of nutritional supplements on my website, and I would get these emails from people looking for products, and, the capsules were gelatin, which meant that there was animal product in it. And they would have a hissy, it's like, well, I won't take it because it has gelatin. I'm like, sorry. I mean, that's what it comes in. I can't fix that. And I think that, from that psycho-spiritual perspective, if we're constantly denying ourselves, if there's this part of us that sometimes a cheeseburger just really freaking tastes good, and your body just wants it. And it's okay to me, to let your body have what it wants. Every day, no. Eating a bunch of sugar every day, no. But, at Thanksgiving, is it okay to have a piece of, pie or two? It's Thanksgiving. But are you screwed forever? No. I mean, so I don't know what you say, eating less and less. I mean, are you eating meat more than once a week or less than once a week? Or
basically every other day. So, but it's gone less over time, I can tell you that. more diet that has less meat. So maybe it'll turn, maybe by the end of this year it'll be only twice a week. I don't know, but
but see, I think that's good. I mean, they talk about the Mediterranean diet. Okay, so there's the vegan diet, there's the vegetarian diet, and then there's the Mediterranean diet. And so even people that eat a small amount of meat but still eat a lot of fruits and vegetables as the major part of their diet, still experience health benefits. The most hardcore one is the vegan one. But there are people that are vegans, quote unquote, and they eat crap. So you could be not eating meat. Like I had a girlfriend years and years and years ago who decided to become a vegetarian and lives on Lorna Doone because they were a vegetarian. And I'm like, yeah, but they're Lorna Doone. And so it's not even as much, it's part of it what you are eating. And when I say meat, I mean all meat. Meat, anything with I, there's people putting this stuff in the chat room, anything with I is considered meat. And if you're a vegan, that means no cheese, no eggs, not any kind of animal product, period. Now, one of the things with the hardcore vegan diet has been revolving around heart disease and plaque in the arteries because basically they cut out fat too. And I've seen presentations where people have gone from, pretty close to needing bypass surgery to restoring their arteries back to health by incorporating this diet. So I mean, there are cheese is coming from an animal. No. Anyway, but I think that anything that people do, I mean, to me, the first step is to get off the prepackaged foods, get off the sugar, get off the chemicals, and incorporate yogurt, dairy. No. And incorporate more fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, not particularly frozen, into their diet, things that are good for you, high fiber. And, a lot of people will go, well, they don't taste good. And it's not that they don't taste good, it's just that your taste buds are used to ingesting all of that salt and all of the sugar that comes in prepackaged foods. But after a while, a piece of fruit will actually taste pretty darn good and might actually be too sweet for your palate. But it takes a while. It takes reprogramming your body to taking those foods in and having it like it, changing that desire level of the taste buds. So I think you're on the right track, Andrew, by what you're doing, and you might find that your meat consumption becomes less and less and less. I mean, making the assumption that you're eating, good stuff in place of where you're not eating that meat.
Well, Whole Foods is the only store I buy food from, and they're probably the best you can get in terms of supermarket shopping. But anyway, it's time to take calls. First up, Inspectu, who's in the chat room, is area code 212. So I know who you are, but you are on the air. What's your name? Where are you from? And I know your question is about Morgellons, but I'll let you stay on for a couple more questions if you like. So welcome to the show. Hello? Area code 212.
Hello?
You're on. Yes, you're on the air. How you doing?
Oh, I'm okay. How are you?
Great.
I want to tell you first two things. I've been enjoying the show, and you are an incredible interviewer.
Thank you.
I'm a first-time viewer, and it's been quite amazing. And I might disappoint you, but I'm not who you think I am.
Oh, okay.
I don't have Morgellons, at least. I hope I don't.
Oh, okay. But
I've had a lot of things, right? But I, never heard that.
Okay.
Anyway, name is Karen, and I was wondering, Rita Louise, hi, what you
Hi.
might see going on with my body. I've been on a very long healing journey, and I'm frustrated, and I'm not sure where I'm at right now. So I just
So
want.
can you share with me some symptoms, or like the 5-second, because we are on air?
Yes.
History, just so I can focus in on some area or another.
Yes. Well, I've had systemic candida for quite a number of years. It's gotten better through different practitioners and protocols, but never been quite myself. I'm trying to get to the bottom of, is what else is it tied into. I've had thyroid issues. I'm on Armour Thyroid. I have adrenal, other hormone imbalances, periodontal disease, sinus issues. I was on a protocol for a while last year to treat a bacteria that was found also in my intestines. So I don't know if, that's a contributing factor or if that's gone, or I'm not sure where I'm at. I have had my mercury removed from my body. I don't know
enough,
that
enough. I mean, we're talking, if you called me up, I would tell you we would need an hour to go through all your stuff. So I'm just going to pick one.
Okay.
One of the excuse me?
I'm sorry. I just thought they might, it might ring a bell, like one thing would stand out that they would be connected.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the hormone issue, I'm not even going to go there, but I'm going to talk about the chronic infection, candida part, which I think is tied to what's going on in your mouth as well. One of the things that you're showing me is that your body runs, in Chinese medicine, it would be considered wet. And so, actually, I feel like your body runs kind of hot and wet. So I would write that down and just go do a little research on those terms, but those are Chinese medicine terms. And I feel like you are not able to burn off disease that's in your body. It's always like your body has this little swamp thing going on inside. So you take care of what's on the surface, but what's lying beneath the surface of this kind of murky water is always kind of there. So I get the impression that you deal with stuff, but it kind of becomes very circular, where you deal with it and it's gone for a little while, and then it comes up in a different form, the next year, because you're not taking the supplementation for the original issue, and so it had a chance to come back or morph into something else. But I feel like addressing that wet state inside your body, and in particularly inside your gut, is the direction. Wet is the direction that you need to head. I think that would give you like a yang condition versus yin. It's more that feminine, there's not a lot of energy or drive pushing things forward and moving things out. So there's kind of like this chronic low energy situation that's going on, and not hormonally low energy, but constitutionally low energy.
What does constitutionally mean? It
means that that's just how your body operates, or at least that's how it's operating now because it's out of balance. And I'm not a Chinese medicine practitioner, although, that's what you're showing me, because looking at body constitution is pretty easy to do. What to do to correct it? I'm a Western herbalist, by education, and that's why I'm kind of giving you those words, because there's a ton of information online that you can go look to see what you can do to balance out a wet condition, to balance out a yang condition in the body. But there's a lot that you can do with foods and supplements for those.
So maybe you think I need to go to a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner?
I think that would, if that is something you can afford to do, that would be, I think, advisable. Because I feel like there's something deeper, not deeper in the body. I mean, I feel like there's a constitutional issue that's going on, and that the candida and that infection and what's going on in your mouth are just symptoms of this constitutional issue that's out of balance.
Okay, I just want to mention, as a child, I was told I had a history of pneumonia. Plus,
but see, that's a cold, wet state. I mean, think about it. It's water in the lungs. It's a wet state.
So does that mean I was born with this? Or am I young?
I mean, having a weak constitution isn't, it's just how it is. And so there are things that you can do. I mean, it's kind of like, having no biceps. You can go and you can exercise and you can increase the size of your biceps. And so if you have a weak constitution, there are things that you can do to strengthen your constitution to help balance it back out.
Right. And I need to study or see a Chinese medicine practitioner to do that or learn that?
That would be the direction I would look. I mean, if you just look in, Western medicine, they don't even address it from that perspective.
Yeah. Wow. This is fascinating. I hope I can afford one.
Like I said, look online. I'm telling you, there's a ton of information.
Right.
On the Internet, there are a lot of books about, addressing a yang condition or a wet condition, and I think you sound like you're a smart enough lady to be able to address it, not necessarily through supplements, but through food.
So I would need more yin things. I needed more yang things.
Correct. Because yin is the, more aggressive, more powerful, would balance out your constitution.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for calling in.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care now. All right. Got one more caller on the queue. Two of the callers actually dropped off for whatever the reason. Regular listener here. It's taking a while. All right. Parasite Milton, you are on the air. What's your question?
Hi, thank you. I was wondering if you have any patients that have Morgellons and
you are the one. Okay, sorry.
What have you used to treat Morgellons?
I have never had anybody contact me with that issue. Well, actually, hang on a second. I'm looking it up because
I could make things easier for you if you'd like.
No, I'm looking it up online. I mean, I guess I've had a couple of clients that have had it. I don't have an answer for you. How's that?
Don't worry about that. Let's say I have a Lyme co-infection and two unknown vectors that are not necessarily, they're not organic, and they're self-replicating, so it's complicated. I guess actually Morgellons is complicated because there's a self-replicating aspect to it, and they're in the environment, and I think according to Harold, there's a fella that's, all you need to do is actually look at this one guy's video.
So we're just gonna stop right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I work with someone, I work with that individual. I look at what their body is telling me, you know, and I identify this is what your body needs. This is where your energy is stuck. This is what's going on. So for something like this, you know, it's not like I can say, oh well, you know, take the milk thistle and call me in the morning. I mean,
I understand, but I'm sure you would do it justice, you know, if you were more, you know, if you knew a lot about it. It's multi-systemic, it's complicated. The symptoms are, you know, like a laundry list. So I don't want to stress you out here and put you on the spot, but I would love to hear your reply after, if you've read a little bit about it, if possible.
And like I said, it's not like I would just come up with a treatment. That's
I know
not how my work works. So I have to have a body sitting in front of me, and I say, this is what your body needs.
All right.
Everything I do is individualized and customized.
I'll make this one simple. Forget about Morgellons. I woke up about a week ago. Both ears I couldn't hear from. I tried a few things. The one thing that I found finally worked was I used a small, brand new little hand vacuum cleaner, and it worked on both ears. But now I'm still deaf in the left ear. Is that
So I just feel like there is fluid backed up behind the eardrum. And, so taking the hairdryer to the side of your head, maybe not such a bad idea, just dry it out.
Yeah, it actually worked. I mean, after, using mullet, I forget the name of that oil. There's some oil that's supposed to be good for your ears, but mullet, I can't remember. Something like mullein or something. I've tried a couple of essential oils, but at the end I was just so desperate, that the vacuum cleaner kind of did work. Yeah, you got it, Mars girl. That's right. What was the other thing? Oh, and I just recently became incompetent. No, I'm just kidding. Incontinent, like yesterday, and I was going to go to the hospital, but because it was so painful and frequent, it was just sudden. But I had my pharmacy just deliver some L-arginine, and almost 100%, but not 100%. Any ideas on that?
I mean, I've never heard of somebody becoming incontinent in one day.
I woke up, I couldn't make it to the bathroom. Just something that I had 20 years ago. That it wasn't like that. It just was frequent urination. I could control it, and I still can control it most of the day, but it was so painful. But I don't feel like I have an infection. But the L-arginine seemed to really help a lot. I 99% feel almost better. But I twice I didn't make it to the bathroom. I wet my pants, so that was really scary.
And don't get old.
Don't get old. Get some good.
Yeah, don't have babies and then don't get old, because
I wish I could reverse that. That would be great. I did try. I wanted to mention a Chinese herbalist. I go to Chinatown. I didn't know there was a way to do it online. He did me a lot of good. I want to mention. He made me. It was expensive though. He made all kinds of these herbal teas, and just to get you just mix them together. You're supposed to boil it, but I think it's just the point is to get it in you, But he did me a lot of good. But I would love to try to, do it online. It never even occurred to me. But he did something where he felt your hand. He would just put.
You can't do Chinese medicine online. I mean, I guess you could find someone that would work with you over the phone or over the internet. But
yeah,
I mean, that's not what I was suggesting to that last caller.
I see. I see. He was so specific when he touched my hand. He knew what part of my liver, what part of my everything, where I had poor circulation or parasites or whatever the case was. He would feel and he would treat me accordingly, and he was great. I wish I could afford to go often, That would be great. It was a good recommendation. And also the best diet I think I've ever was on was the no gluten, dairy, and sugar. But meat was on that menu.
Well, and, there are different philosophies. Like I said, I have seen people make miraculous recoveries by getting rid of the meat.
Really?
Yep. But that's all, so.
I think I could give up meat, but not the dairy. I don't know. The dairy was the hardest.
Actually, dairy is really bad for you, and it's really addicting.
I know. I wish I could stop the dairy. What's the other one? They said just eat the caveman diet. I'm not sure. Well, that included meat.
Paleo diet.
Yeah. Not a good diet, right?
I mean, the paleo diet is okay. The paleo diet, has a lot very in parallel with the vegan diet. I mean, there's just several changes to it.
Right. Yeah, I feel a diet will definitely be, 99% of some sort of cure for what's bothering me, but I don't know if it's ever going to be eradicated. But anyway, I don't think I want to stress you over too much else. Oh, and that's about it. I mean, I have a skin.
Okay.
Yeah, that's enough. That's enough without going into the Morgellons. But I'm just gonna. Can I send you a link?
Sure.
That would be a very good start.
Okay.
He's done more for Morgellons than everybody that's researched it for 20 years. He did consult with them all, but he just kind of made it very more palatable, and he's very bright and articulate and good looking, so real easy to look at and very smart, really a brilliant scientist. So he's a good start, and then you could take it from there. And I recommend everybody watch it. You'll find it fascinating. All right?
All right, thank you.
Thanks
for calling.
Thank you for calling. Call in any time.
Thanks
Hope you learned something.
Thank you.
Take care now. Bye.
Bye.
All right, there's another caller here in the queue. Just called in 4 minutes ago. Area code 856. You were on the air. What's your name? Where you're from? What's your question?
Hi, this is Laura. I'm in New Jersey.
Glad to see
Hi,
you
Laura.
on the show. How you doing?
Hi. So, are you? Is it medical questions or is it any question?
Any question?
It can be any question, but it really needs to be a question. So go ahead.
Okay, so I was wondering if you see me staying in the contract that I'm currently in because I'm trying to buy a house.
So the contract that you are in, like on a lease?
Well, I have a contract, for my employment, and I just want to know if you see that lasting at least through September so that I can, afford the house.
Got it. Give me 1 second. I have to kind of figure out. All right, we're in February. Well, I don't even want to say this, but I feel like that contract is going to change sometime in the middle of March. But I feel like you will land something right on the other side of that. And so I don't know when you're looking at starting to purchase a house, if you're already in that process. But I feel like if it's going to be later in the year, that you will be employed. And so that won't be the issue. But I feel like the job position you're in right now will actually be ending the middle to end of March.
Okay. Do you have any idea why that would happen? Because it was supposed to go through September.
I just feel like it's more of a political thing. I don't really feel like it has to do with you, like they're going to be doing some restructuring. And so, and you're just one of the people that get impacted by it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling. Take care now. Namaste.
Okay.
Okay, Rita, just so you know, we have 24 minutes and 30 seconds left on the live feed. We can go a little past 2 hours if you need to finish speaking or finish a thought or something, but let's try to keep this to a 2-hour show if possible, for all the sake of all those people who have lousy attention spans. But you are also a Reiki master and certified hypnotherapist. Let's start with Reiki. The thing about Reiki, I always ask this to every guest I have had on who has some experience in Reiki. A little bit of a debate as to how much Reiki training you need to do to become a Reiki master. It has been said, just acknowledge and believe. Acknowledge and believe that you have the ability to heal people through Reiki by touching them, or maybe not even touching them, just putting yourself near them and transferring, transmuting, draining, whatever word you want to use, the negative energy or entities out of them, and just believe and acknowledge you have the ability to do that. But many would assert, no, you have to practice. And the example I use that many would assert you have to practice is telekinesis, moving things with your hand. For the past few years, I've actually tried a teeny tiny itsy bitsy piece of paper, tried to move it, just a couple millimeters, put my hand near it, close my eyes, meditate while standing, move it, but I have never been able to move the paper, even though the Jedi in the Star Wars movies would be able to move that with ease, and the Star Wars Force is based on the ki, chi, whatever you want to call it, that it exists in our world. So for some inexplicable reason, I cannot move that paper, and likewise, maybe some would assert for the same reason you won't be able to do. Some people can't do Reiki even if they practice it. Well, all right. I mean, to what extent do you have to practice Reiki to become a Reiki master? And maybe could you help me understand what I have to do to practice telekinesis to the point where I can actually do it?
Well, when you figure it out, you need to tell me how to do telekinesis. I would say that 99.9% of the people on the planet cannot do telekinesis, and so you're part of a good club. As far as the Reiki is concerned, everyone on the planet does some form of Reiki. Now, I want everyone listening to think back in time to when you were a little kid and you fell down and you scraped your knee and you ran over to your mom, and what did she do? She kissed it. Or what do? You take your hand and you put it on your alley and you hold it and you kind of send loving thoughts into it, and you want it to feel better. That is a form of Reiki. Earlier we were talking about religions, and I said, well, they're all just a bunch of dogma. And I hate to speak ill of, the notion of Reiki, because I think as a healing modality, just based on what you do, it's a great one, but I believe that there is so much dogma that has been tied to it, and you have to be a Reiki master, and you have to have these trainings, and you have to have that. You know what? BS. I don't think so. I don't believe so. I mean, I went for the Reiki training, but I was already doing training energy work that was way advanced of Reiki, but it's a great place for people to start, to venture into the land of subtle energy. It's very simple, it's very safe, and I don't believe you need to have specific training in order to practice it, especially on yourself, on your pet, on a loved one. I don't know that I would feel comfortable saying, oh, we'll get a book and then, hang up a shingle and start, seeing clients without getting some kind of training. I think that would be a little far-reaching. But to utilize, Reiki energy, chi energy for yourself, we all exude it. This is just giving you a format in which to utilize that energy on yourself and other people. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Fair enough. I've heard the same from a lot of other Reiki masters. And let's move on to the other thing here, certified hypnotherapy. Before we get into the kind of hypnotherapy you do, just hypnosis.
I don't.
Oh, you don't?
I don't.
You don't, but you're certified in it?
Well, I took the training, and I utilized hypnotherapy-like technique to do guided imagery with my clients. But I found that I go into trance with my clients, and that's really not a good place for you as the hypnotherapist to be, because I'm too empathic, I'm too sensitive to their energy, and so I'm in it with them, which is really kind of interesting because, you know, I would take a client into a past life, and now I'm there in their past life with them. So it's a really kind of an interesting phenomenon, but from a therapeutic point of view, not good. So I had to stop doing it. It doesn't mean I'm not certified.
All right, understandable, perfectly understandable. Looking at your website here, soulhero.com, we can do a couple of these subjects here in the past 18 minutes or so that we'll have on the live feed. The passing, observing the death process. Okay, so you observed the death process. Tell us what you see.
Okay, so that article is about a neighbor of mine who surprisingly had a heart attack. And when I got over to their house, he was laying on the floor. The paramedics were working on him. I was in the kitchen with his wife, and so basically there was their kitchen, and then there was, you know, like an island, and then their living room was on the other side of the island. He was on the floor in the living room. And I didn't really know what to do until my little healing brain turned on. I'm thinking, well, you know, maybe I can, like, you know, send some healing energy over there and do some energy work on him to help break up whatever was going on. And when I looked over there was kind of like this glowing, golden, kind of human-shaped body. I don't really know how else to explain it over the air, kind of floating over him, over his physical body. And I was like trying to push him back in. I was trying to give him a grounding cord. I was trying anything and everything that came to me in that moment. Not feeling particularly successful in anything that I was doing. And so I just kept working on him, and then at one point in time, I just kind of feel something behind me, and I turn around and I look, and there, his name was Larry. And there's Larry standing by the back door, kind of leaning up on the kitchen counter, and he looked at me and he goes, "God damn it, I don't want to go back." And at that point in time, I just stopped. I stopped working on him, and I just allowed whatever was going to happen because he obviously was done and was ready to take his next step. And what was really freaking cool was, so there was this, you know, like kind of cylinder body thing over him. And then I don't know what happened. I mean, it was after he said he, you know, to just quit. It kind of like opened up in the middle and like became this donut. And this donut expanded through the house. And, I mean, I could feel his energy just move through me. It was intense. It was really freaking intense. So that's what I wrote about. I've never had that happen again. I mean, it was a blessing to be able to experience that.
Well, I'm glad you thought it was a blessing. So a lot of people say death is not a blessing, but then again, why wouldn't you say it's a blessing? Because the person that dies, quote unquote, dies, they get into heaven or wherever. Well, some turn into ghosts, unfortunately, but that's another. We already discussed
but,
that.
But I mean, death is part of life, you know,
right.
And so it's going to happen at some point in time, whether we like it or not. And I think the people that are afraid of death, that feel like they have to hang on to, you know, there are people that are so sick and still choose to hang on to life. And I'm like, I'd rather make the transition than be in a nursing home and live that kind of life. I'm sorry. I'm not that afraid of death.
Well, I'm not either, and I don't see why you should be, because we know there is a quote-unquote afterlife. But moving on, stress relief and revitalization herbal bath recipes. I don't believe
you're just going to pick every single article that's on here, aren't you?
Why not? That's the kind of radio show host I am. Everything on the fly in a 2-hour show to make sure I get every single one of a person's specialties into the show. So we didn't talk about this, so it only makes sense to bring it up. And I've listened to a lot of this stuff from Andrew Bartzis talking about bath salts and Himalayan salts good for stress relief and such. But in regards to these herbal bath recipes, what have you got to tell us?
Well, okay. So I think that taking herbal baths are really good. They give people the opportunity to relax and kind of get into their own little world, allowing their bad mojo energy to go down the drain. One of the things that I recommend in this article is to use, you can use essential oils, but you can also use dried herbs. And if you can find, it used to be that it was very easy to find bulk herbs, at Whole Foods or different stores. You could just go and get a little bag of lavender and a little bag of this, a little bag of that. And, traditionally they would have you put it into a cheesecloth and put it into the tub. And I don't know about anybody that's ever tried to take an herbal bath doing it that way. Mine always got everywhere in the tub, and I clogged up the drain a couple of times, and I'm like, there's got to be an easier way. So one of the things that I recommend to people is to take their herbs and to literally put them in their coffee pot. Their, Mr. Coffee pot, put the filter in, put your herbs in there, and then make a tea, and then take that liquid and pour it into your tub water. And you can actually fill the pot up twice without changing the herbs, and you get all of the benefit out of the herbs that are in your coffee pot. And so, and there are a lot of people that experience a lot of stress, and I'm just going to throw this out because this is something very simple. But chamomile, it's like chamomile tea like you can get in the supermarket, is very relaxing to the body, to the psyche, and it makes a great bath. And so if you are looking to do something for stress relief, without going into these recipes, go to the supermarket and get a box of chamomile tea and make, a pot of chamomile tea. Take 2 tea bags or 4 tea bags and throw them into the coffee maker and let it steep through a cycle and pour it into your tub and climb in the tub with it with some Epsom salt. Same thing with peppermint tea. Peppermint is a good stimulator, so if you're sick and have a cold or you have aches and pains in the body, peppermint will help to get the blood flowing, get our energy going. And actually, and this is going to sound like kind of a contradiction, you can take the chamomile and the peppermint and put it together so you can get relaxing of the psyche and the muscles, but activation of the blood system and a level of pain relief from the peppermint tea. Those are things that you can get at your supermarket and use whenever, which I think is even easier. So
I think I'll look into that next time I go to Whole Foods. I'll search into that stuff. So, all right, still got a little time here. You know where this is going. Next article. Okay, first of all, the end of the world. Will there be an end of the world? Well, if you're talking about the New World Order taking over, you can't be serious. George Kavaslis, in my interview with him, he said he's felt within his heart soul essence that Mother Earth at its heart soul essence is a love-based entity. So the New World Order, there may be times where it comes down hard, like after it stages like a 9/11 or a Sandy Hook or something, but they'll never be able to succeed in their plot of global totalitarian government, not to mention Andrew Bartzis has talked about how since 2011 the Archon control system has been cannibalizing itself, and it's at a state where it can't stop cannibalizing itself, and how quickly it cannibalizes itself is dependent on how quickly or how slowly the human race wakes up in many regards. So what kind of end of the world are you perceiving in here? I see you have a mushroom cloud from a nuclear blast, but is that what you see?
Well, that's not what the article talks about. But,
okay. I figured.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't think, this is just my opinion, I don't think the world is going to end. I think that civilization on the planet as we know it will end. I don't think that it's going to be able to support our indulgences and our lack of paying attention to Mother Earth. I think we have overpopulated it and taken way too many resources from it, and it's just a matter of time. I feel like it's just a time bomb right now. So I don't believe that it's necessarily going to be, you know, Yosemite having a master eruption or, you know, a meteor per se, but us doing it to ourselves, you know, poisoning our water, nuking each other. You know, they're talking about in Korea that they might be shooting off this rocket so that they can have intercontinental ballistic missiles, which might be true, might be a lot of hype. You never know with our media. You know, so I feel like we're just going to do it to ourselves. You know, that's going to be our end of the world. I don't think that there is going to be, you know, something like, you know, what this article really talks about are different end-of-the-world prophecies, you know, like there was 2012, or then right before that there was the end of the millennia, you know, the 1999 to 2000, you know, people thought the world was going to come to an end. But these stories have been going on, these end-of-the-world doomsday prophecies have been going on, with the earliest one coming from 2800 BC. That was, you know, they found on a tablet. But I have to tell you, and I'm just going to look, okay, so this is my favorite one. I'm just going to read it from the article. And so it's talking about 1523. So what it says is, at around the same time, a German astrologer, Johannes Schofler, claimed that a conjunction of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn would cause a giant flood to happen on February of 1524. In Germany, people built boats to save themselves from the impending doom. One man, Count von Iglenhim, something like that, a big proponent of Schofler, built a 3-story ark. On the forecasted day, a slight rain began to fall. This caused people to go into a widespread panic. Hundreds of people, including the Count, died. Schofler, having survived the angry mob, also recalculated the date and found that the conjunction wasn't to occur until sometime in 1528. Thankfully, the people of Germany had learned their lesson and took little heed of his warning. But I think that it's really funny that, you know, people went crazy because it started to rain, and they were so tied into that whole end of the world thing. And I think, you know, with 2012 having passed, I think that even though if people didn't believe that there was going to be an apocalypse happening in 2012, there was still a little piece in the back of their mind going, well, what if it does? You know, but what if it does? Thankfully, there really haven't been any new end-of-the-world prophecies that I've heard of recently, which is good. You know, but they seem to come out with new ones every year or so.
Yeah, I haven't heard any, since you mentioned that, I haven't heard any end-of-the-world prophecies at all. I've heard about massive consciousness expansion points in the near future, but certainly nothing about the end of the world. All right, we got a little over 5 minutes left in the live feed, so we talked about ghosts, but we didn't really talk much about how to get rid of them. I see the article here, so how do you get rid of a ghost?
Well, what I recommend to people is if you have a ghost in your house, or if you think you have a ghost in your house, the first thing to do is to try to communicate with it, because not all ghosts are mean, not all ghosts are harmful. And just try to create a relationship with the ghost might be all you need to end any kind of weird stuff that you have going on. again, without really knowing who the ghost is, you don't know if they are some trapped spirit that hasn't made the transition or if it's somebody who is coming to visit. For example, I was moving into a house with my husband at the time, and I was bringing a box in, and our kitchen table was already set up in that house. And there was this man, invisible man, sitting at the table drinking a cup of coffee. And I didn't know who he was per se, but his energy reminded me of my husband, and his father had passed. And so I was like, hey, Jim, if your dad was in the house, would he be sitting at the kitchen table drinking a cup of coffee? And he was a rancher, they raised cows. And he goes, well, he wasn't really in the house a lot. I said, okay, but if he was in the house, would he be sitting at the table drinking a cup of coffee? And he goes, well, yeah, that's where he would be. And I'm like, he's here. And he came in. I mean, not that he would ever say he was psychic, but he was kind of tripping out because there was his dad sitting at our kitchen table. Now, do I want to say that his dad didn't pass over and he was just some lingering spirit? No way. And he would show up periodically, but then again, we would have other people show up periodically at our house too. So, identifying and separating out who's who, and, are they your ghost? Are they tied to the house? Are they just passing through? Because you can't just lump them all into one pile. And so that's what I recommend to people. That's the first step, and then they can go on from there. And if they're too afraid to do it, then get some help.
Okay. All right. And I guess we'll close the show on a quick bit about meditation. Many say meditation, well, you should do it every single day, but if you make a ritual out of meditation, it can become harmful. If you make a ritual out of it, that's not me talking, that's George Kavaslis talking in my private session with him way back in the day. I asked him to clarify that, and he did clarify, saying, well, first of all, he said, I probably should have been a little more clear on that because I might have inspired a few people not to meditate. Well, no, that's not what I wanted people to do. And he went into what he meant by saying make a ritual out of meditation. But in regards to maybe you can help clarify what he might have meant by that, what you think that might mean, and also what kind of advice you have for people who want to meditate, just, 2 minutes and 8 seconds on the live feed.
Well, I think that meditation helps us to let go of the things that we're holding on to. There is active meditation and passive meditation. So most people are familiar with passive meditation, where you just sit there and you go Om or whatever chant, which is very challenging for people in the United States. And so I suggest to many of my clients to try active meditation. One of the things that you see more frequently on places like Amazon or Etsy are adult coloring books, like mandala coloring books, and by coloring is actually a form of active meditation. Exercising is a form of active meditation if you are really into the groove. Meditation is about getting your energy into the groove, into the flow of the universe, which allows you to let go because there's a single point of focus. So if you're exercising and you're really into it, or if you're dancing and your mind is just really into it, you are in the flow. You hear musicians that talk about being in the flow, and that is the point of meditation. So whether you're sitting on the top of a mountain or you're sitting at your kitchen table, it doesn't really matter. It's just really about getting into that flow. And the more you're able to get into that flow, be into that flow, the happier and healthier you're going to be.
Thank you. And I meditate every day, or at least I try to, and I think it's done me well. That inspires others to do the same. So 20 seconds of the live feed. I guess I'll end this show now, and I'll do that by, this is always the most emotional part of every single one of my shows. I'll tell you the same thing that I tell all of my guests. I loved having you on. I had a lot of things covered in this show because, well, you obviously do cover a lot of things. You're a fascinating individual for that reason and that reason alone. Your medical skills, your love of spirituality and antiquity, it's amazing. And if you ever want to looking for a radio show or some medium to get your word out, by all means, give me a buzz, and I can give you like maybe a half hour to an hour special to come on. But as far as me contacting you or my other guests, the truth is, Dr. Rita Louise, ever since I created this show, I've been on a mission of sorts to try to get as many different guests on my show as possible before I give any one specific guest double dips, because I've always felt that is the fairest, most impartial, and most informative way to do a radio show that seeks to expose the true and false nature of reality. So I do regret to tell you that probably means that I won't be asking you or any of my other previous guests to come on the show again, but please understand that's only because I need to give thousands of other fascinating individuals the chance to have some glory on my show. But I will make sure that the valuable information in this show gets spread far and wide. I will upload it to YouTube. I will post it on social media. I'll make sure that people listen to your stories, listen to your advice, and some of those interesting things you said, like, well, where's the evidence for that? Well, hopefully that will inspire people to try to find evidence, because a lot of people do make outlandish claims, and I'm glad you pointed that out. So this was a great interview. I hope you got something from it. I certainly did, and I do wish you the best of luck with your future endeavors.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks for having me on the show.
Loved having you on. Take care now.
All right.
Later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. It's the end of this show, folks. Next week, I will be having Julie Bazzelli. I believe that's how her name is now. It's Julie Bazzelli from intuitivedivineseer.com, I believe is the website. Someone recommended her. So I don't know if this has anything to do with the fact that Psychic Sean Cohen, in a reading I did with her not that long ago, she said, I'm getting the name Julie during the reading spontaneously, and it seems kind of strange to me that that would have anything to do with just because a guest of my show was going to be named Julie, that would come up. Seems kind of random, but I was also told in about maybe 3 years or so I'll be meeting some girl with the last name of J, or her first name begins with the letter J. So, and I'll really like her. Don't know if I'll marry her and all, but hey, if she proposes, I'll do it. But all right, enough about that. I'm digressing. Julie Bazzelli from Intuitive Divine Seer on the show next week. This is Andrew Fisher signing off from Nature of Reality Radio. Namaste, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your trek throughout infinite consciousness.